البداية أول مرة اشتغلت كنت عمري 16 ونص كده في ماكدونالدز. I can tell you that I would not be where I am right now had it not been for those lessons. You know, سودانيين احنا نريد الحقارة يعني.
أول عربي مسلم in this position, و historically George Washington served in this position.
Okay, maybe people are going to raise more money than us, but no one is going to outwork us. Now that I'm running for Congress, I have, alhamdulillah, the education, I have the political experience and the actual achievements.
يعيش حلمه ويمثل حلم الملايين من المهاجرين في أمريكا، حلم يقول إن المستحيل ليس إلا بداية الطريق. حمل معه منذ الطفولة شعوراً عميقاً بالمسؤولية ومسيرة نحو تحقيق العدالة أينما كان. إنه المحامي السياسي المدافع عن حقوق العمال والعضو السابق في مجلس مدينة الاكسندريه والمترشح للكونجرس الأمريكي موسف الدين.
If you win and you are now in the house, how are you gonna work on this stuff?
Well, first we have
ديبكاست مع مهند، وهذه قصة جديدة.
So محمد سيف الدين والشهير بمو، أنا عارف إنك أنت يمكن حاليا في اللحظة دي بتمر بأكبر يمكن decision أنت you decided to do it in your life هسه في اللحظة دي تحديدا، وإنك running for Congress. لكن طبعا زي ما أنت عارف أنا بهتم جدا بعرف الستوري behind الجست بتاعي يعني، وأنا والله متشرف بيك جدا، وعايز كده ناخدك لورا كده للقضارف وللشباب، وعايز أخدك في القضارف، كيف طفولتك كانت، كيف أسرتك كان، وخدنا كده بهناك.
والله أهلا بك وشكرا للاستضافة. I'm happy to be with you. يا قصة هي يعني مولود أنا في القضارف، وقمت هناك زي 6 سنين كده، قعدت 6 سنين القضارف في ديمن ميلز وحي الجناين. بيت أهلي يعني جدي وجدتي ساكنين هناك كانوا، ومعظم العائلة دائما هناك في السودان يعني. فكانت أيام جميلة، أيام طفولة. وجدي ما شاء الله يعني مش كان بس رجل أعمال في السوق، لكن برضو كان جدي أبو أمي كان برضو يعني بيهتم بالحيوانات وعنده زي الزريبة كده. فقمنا فيها، ويعني كنا بنمشي نحلب اللبن والهنادي والخرفان طبعا متربية برضو يعني. فطفولة كانت جميلة، ومعايا حولي كان أولاد خالي، أولاد خالتي، أولاد عمامي، يعني فعالة كبيرة ما شاء الله. فلما تكون في البيئة دي يعني بتكون متواصل مع الناس دائما، والحياة دي ما بتتنسي. فيعني دي بدايتي، وانشئت بها وقمت بها. والأصول يعني طلع من القضارف، برضه التماسك مع الناس وكده والتواصل مع الناس. فبعد ذاك كان رحلنا الخرطوم. للاسف يعني معظم الناس بيمشي من الغالين للخرطوم، لكن الخرطوم طبعا ما شاء الله هي تجذب الناس برضه. فمشينا الخرطوم وسكنت في المنطقة اسمها الشعبية، ودرست الابتدائي في مدرسة الشعبية، وبعد ذاك تحولت لمدرسة المزاد لسنة 7. طبعا المدارس هناك انت عارف الحصص، الطابور، الحياة الجميلة دي. يعني ما كنت مشاغب كثير، لكن اتجلدت كم مرة كده. مرتين اكشلي في حياتي، وبعد ذاك ما حصلت. المرة الأولى بتذكر كان في قصة شنو بقول لها، بيولوجي، علوم
أحياء أو علوم أو علوم قول مثلا لو أنت أحياء
ما فارق.
ما فارق يا
الجري لسه اتذكر، الوحيد اتذكر.
المهم الجلدة، قول لي المهم الجلدة.
اتذكرها. فتعرف كان عندنا امتحان ولا اختبار، مش امتحان، اختبار. فقصد انا ما جبت فيه يعني درجه عاليه ولا حاجه، لكن ما سقطت. الاستاذ برضه كان شاب ولد كده، فقام جلد لك الناس وجلدني معه، كان اول مره اتجلد. فطبعا انا برضه انا اول اصغر واحد في العائله برضه يعني مدلع شويه، كنت في القضارف ما هنا نخش مع واحد ثاني. المهم يعني سنه قص ساعات ولا 5 ما اعرف بكيت. وبعد ذاك مشيت البيت وببكي، وهناك اختي جات المدرسه وشكت لك الاستاذ يعني بتذكرها يعني. فمين ديك اختي لمياء يعني كان دائما عندي معها علاقه قويه، ودائما جات حمايتي. ودي برضه يعني بتوريني من البداية أنا دخلت إنه fight for justice و stick up for yourself والحاجات زي دي. فالمهم يعني برضه كانت أيام جميلة وطفولة جميلة، وبعد ذاك كما تعلم يعني الحياة في السودان الناس طبعًا أنت لمّا تقوم في الحياة يعني ما بتعرف إنه في حياة غير الحياة الساكن فيها أنت فاهمني كيف؟ فدي كانت حاجة لي أنا عادية كما الناس اللي معاي كلهم. لكن برضه يعني كان في حاجات داخلية في البلد سياسيًا وكده ضاقت علينا وعلى الأهل، فاضطرينا يعني نطلع ونجي الولايات المتحدة. فبعد ذاك من جينا هنا قصة تانية عشان تحب
لازم
القصص.
لازم انا احب القصص.
طبعًا أخوك لا بيعرف إنجليزي ولا زول بيعرف إنجليزي من هناك، أنا
لكن انت
وأمي
وصلت انت وصلت هنا يا محمد عمرك 12 سنه
باشا
صح؟
12 والّا
إيه.
13.
انجليزي ما في تيك تاك.
ما في كان يا دوب بديت هناك الحروف، والحاجة الوحيدة كنت باعرفها like hi how are you وI'm very well وبعد ذاك بس الشاي tea والtea دي الtea دي باتذكرها ليه أنت عارف؟ لا كنا في الطيارة كنا ماشيين باللفتحانة الألمانية
اها.
بيتكلموا هنا ألماني وإنجليزي ما بيتكلموا عربي. الوالدة كان بتزعل في الشاي وسألتني عن الشاي شنو بيجي أتذكر الحاجة الوحيدة اللي اتعلمتها.
فقلت لها تي وخلاص ومسكت فيها.
ما بعرف أي غيرها بس تي. ف جابوا لها تي وما أدراك لمن وصلنا ألمانيا كان في لاي اوفر تغيير طيارة، وطبعا احنا بنعرف حاجة. أنا أول مرة أكون أخش مطار وأخوي برضه يعني عمار أكبر مني بسنة، بعد ذاك أمي وإحنا بنعرف إنجليزي. فالمهم جو الناس يعني قال لنا أوكي وصلنا الدول شافوا الورق وما أدراك ادوك الورق بتاعك قال لك أمشي كده يعني. إحنا مشينا وركبنا الطيارة ما في أي مشكلة. الحاصل شنو؟ لما وصلنا هنا ما في أي زول جانا في المطار، الوالد والناي مستكين بس ما بنعرف انجليزي لا عندنا طبعا هناك ما كان الزمن ده ما في تليفونات سيلفون الحاجات دي، مستكين يا زول احنا جينا غلط مشينا البلد غلط ما فاهمين اي حاجه. طلع شنو في اللاي اوفر غيروا لنا الطياره وما كلموا هنا ناسنا ونحن
لا
ما
حول
عارفين
ولا
حاجه
قوة
بس
إلا
دي
بالله.
طيارتكم ركبنا
كنت اقول لكم اركبوا
فيها
كيف طوال الطيارة دي كان
ركبنا بس
ماشية
يا زول
تركيا كان
الحمد
مشيت.
لله. آه. ما كلموه يعني جا الستوردس وما عرف
يا
ساعدوك
يا
وهنا لكن ما قال لي انا اتغيرت لكن نحن ما فهمنا حاجه المهم يعني الحمد لله لقينا ناس وما عارف والله بتذكر زي شاب سوداني ولا منو في المطار. المهم لما فينا ايفنشولي كده ونحن ما عارفين ارقام، وبعد ذاك فتشنا في بعض الرسائل اللي جاتنا لمينا في زول وهو لما في الوالد وجت يعني طلعونا في المطار. لكن دي بدايه الوصول لامريكا.
محمد بعد ما وصلت هنا كده وخدنا بعد ما وصلت هنا اي ثينك كان في تشالنج عالي جدا. انت زول عمرك ما صغير، انت زول 10 سنوات بقى عندك شخصيتك كده ولسه انجليزي ما في وتخش المدارس وبلد جديدة. فكيف كانت كده؟ خدنا كده في طفولتك لغاية ما كده كبرت شوية و... ناخدها
يا
واحدة واحدة.
ما طبعا اي زول بيجي هنا يعني اللغه بيكون له تشالنج فاهم كيف؟ فبعد ذاك شنو؟ دخلوني المدرسه طوالي، والمدرسه بيخطوك في حاجه اسمها اي اس ال يعني انجلش از سكند لانجوج. بيكون عندك حصه ولا حصتين بتاعت انجليزي بس مع ناس زيك بيتعلموا، لكن باقي الحصص كلها شنو؟ انجليزي كلها زي
مع الناس بس
الجغرافيا
تتعصب
الرياضيات. الله
تتعصب
معك
بس.
بس الله معك. فيعني فانت صغير بتتعلم بسرعه، لكن يعني بتمر على كده يعني حاجات بتحصل لك بتكون ما فاهم حاجه طبعا. تشوف ميك فان اوف يو بيضحك فيك وحاجات دي يعني حصلت يعني انت ما فاهمها لكن بتشوف كلامهم ولغتهم والجسم بتاعنا بيتحرك يعني في حاجه ما صح، لكن حتفهم شنو. فالمهم حاجه زي دي خلتك تتعلم بسرعه وتحاول تخش في السيستم. طبعا الحاجه الثانيه يعني الناس لما تجي امريكا ما عندها بتكون يعني انشاءات هنا بتكون لا صعب في البدايه، معظم الناس شباب.
صحيح.
فيعني كموست immigrants we were يعني had my parents يعني اشتغلوا they had to work hard job too just to make ends meet. فأنا لما بقيت old enough 16 started working with them يعني. فالبداية أول مرة اشتغلت كنت عمري 16 ونص كده في ماكدونالدز. وقبال ما أنا بديت معاهم يعني كان الوالد إخواني كانوا شغالين هناك.
فكنتوا
فالمهم يعني
معروفين.
معروفين، وبعد ذاك الشركة ذاتها كانت عندها يعني كم فرع، زي 22 مكان كده. حتى لما رحلنا مشينا مكان تاني اشتغلنا. فيعني it was tough times, good times. لكن we did like most immigrants. We had to work hard and make ends meet, and we made it work. لكن we had we had each other as a family. فدي ساعدتنا. I was also the beneficiary يعني كنت أصغر واحد. My parents and siblings يعني they worked and they allowed me the opportunity to focus more on my studies, but of course I was helping as well and worked as allowed by the law. فدي يعني لما أنت تكون صغير وتبدأ الحاجات دي يعني you start learning a lot about life. فاهمني كيف؟ The experiences were very enriching يعني حتى even I became the youngest manager at that McDonald's. I was like 17
واو
and a half turning into 18.
واو
And I was in charge of 100 people, right? So I would work, I was called a customers CSM ولا حاجة كده. I was like that اسمها or a swing manager or a shift manager. فبالمثل بتكون أنت الوحيد المانجر، وتكون مسؤول من السكجول everything that happens يعني. بعد ذاك بتتعلم فيه حاجات كثيرة، كيف تتعامل مع الناس، الديناميك بتاع الباور, you know, how to kind of modulate yourself, how you learn when you come to protect your employees, when to be stern. والحاجات دي يعني the valuable lessons I learned at McDonald's. I can tell you that I would not be where I am right now had it not been for those lessons يعني. I've also come across people who went to college and graduated and had their first job and may not have had a deeper experience. They may be academically smart, but as far as how to deal with people and navigate certain situations, it feels very elementary to them.
يا سلام.
So there was like an inherent lessons in there that I take to this day with me, and I am very proud of that work that I've done there alongside my family. So it was good. The other thing يعني, and I also want to express this to most people that come here or may be discouraged. ما مشيت الجامعة طوالي بعد ما خرجت الهاي school. Well, actually, before I get into that, when I was in لما كنت في العالية high school, that's when 9/11 happened. So that was also a tough time being still learning the language, still learning the culture and try to fit in. But this thing happened that was so profound and literally changed the United States that you had to experience it. And you had to experience what came with it, whether it's Islamophobia or hate or all these things. So those were really tough times for a lot of Muslims in this community, and we can see how it ties to today. So I kind of went through that experience in itself, and it was, you know, very interesting. That happened. You know, being in high school and being first generation here, you really don't know how it works and how it transitioned from high school to college or what needs to be done. And, you know, sometimes a lot of people fall into that trap or just kind of, you know, have to do what they need to do for their family. So I went to community college بعد ما خرجت من high school, you know, and for about a year or so. And then I went to a 4-year college where I got a Bachelor of Science in Psychology there. About that, I went to law school. So in a nutshell, that's kind of my story من السودان إلى الهاي سكول والكولج.
والله محمد هسه يعني thank you for sharing that يعني يا محمد. وانت هسه بتتكلم عن انه there's a lot of lessons انت طلعت بيها حتى من شغلك في ماكدونالدز. You remind me Steve Jobs when he said you cannot connect the dot unless you look backward. You cannot connect the dot when you look forward. يعني انت لما تكون بادي حياتك وتمر بنقاط كثيرة، بس لكن لما تكون in the end وتعاين لورا بتلقى انه everything is making sense. يعني شغلك في ماكدونالدز is making a lot of sense ليك انت حاسس في المرحلة دي. when I like the way you said it, like انه yeah, some of the people they will be maybe academically very smart but the depth of life experience maybe they don't have it. وده اللي بيفرق ناس من ناس. عندي سؤال، عندي يعني I'm wondering إنه لأنه بهتم جدا بالحاجة دي، متين تكون عندك the feeling of إنك or the desire if you want to be an attorney؟ متين الشعور ده جاك؟ how أنت ذاتك بتقدر to explain it؟ لأنه I think being an attorney أنت بالنسبة لك برضو linked in all of the things you are doing right now. الموضوع كله جاي من روت واحد.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yani, I don't think there was a point that I said, I am going to be an attorney from a young age. But as you said, it's a accumulation of experiences that you go through in life that makes you think something is inherently not right here, that I want to fix it, but I don't know the tools or the words to express what I'm seeing is wrong. So as a child of immigrants, I've seen that. I've seen my parents go through it. I've seen friends go through it. I've seen just neighbors go through injustices. And, Sudani الحملات الحقارة يعني معظمنا. So, but I just didn't know have the tools or even what profession that would be. But I just knew something is wrong and I didn't like that and I wanted to fix it. So actually when I went to college, ما قلت لك يعني بديت أقرأ علم نفس psychology because I was always curious يعني why do people act in a certain way? Why do people do this? يعني why are they like dictators? Why are there people who are doing like killing their own people? Why do certain communities kind of behave in a certain way, or why do corporations or rich people kind of behave in a certain way when they're like all these resources? Like why? So, you can look to religion, and I did to that as well, and I became, kind of versed in it. But I wanted to know more. So, what drives people? And that is when I started learning psychology. So, I thought that was my calling, right? But once in college, and I began to take on some leadership roles and understood more about the world and started reading and expanding my mind beyond my immediate horizon, I was like, okay, there are systems, there are ways to overcome this stuff. And that's when law kind of became thinking in my head. Like, I fight for justice, you have the correct terms of terminology, the critical thinking, and all of that. So that's when I started thinking about law school. And as you said, connecting everything to the past, whether it's growing up in Sudan, seeing the injustice that people face, that may have faced myself, the injustice and the discrimination that I may have faced in the United States, although with all the opportunities that it has, there are still some issues as well. So those kind of all came together. I was like, okay, I think this is what you're coming to now. Like, law is a path. And that's when I made the decision to try to go to law school, which was not an easy decision as well. But life is not about easy decisions. بعد 4 سنين في الجامعة تاني 3 سنين. I went to law school and I got a Juris Doctor in law.
Oh.
Yeah.
طيب يا محمد يا أخي، أخذ الناس كده معاك في إنه أنت بعد ما خلاص you start to practice as an attorney، كنت بتشتغل في شنو تحديدا؟ لأنه المحاميين خشم بيوت زي ما بقول في أمريكا. there is a lot of ways ممكن المحامي يمشي فيها. so كنت شنو بتعمل كمحامي، وشنو at that time كنت بتحس إنه what's your mission exactly?
Yeah, so great question. And I say this because I came across a lot of people after I became a lawyer and some people that I mentored, especially Sudanese men and women. And there's always been an interest in international law. And I think it inherently ties to, the atrocities that we saw in Sudan growing up and the system there and the inherent unfairness. So that's why there's a lot of curiosity about that from my end. So actually, when I was in law school, I got the opportunity to go do an externship at The Hague, at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. I got a taste of international law. I got a taste of, human rights and war crimes and all these things. And I said to myself, eventually I want to be back in this place or in The Hague and hold people accountable around the world, including Sudan, who are committing atrocities against their own people. So that was the path. So I wanted to go to international law. Eventually graduated law school and then came here. Of course, you needed to gain some experience. So I started working to help people out, something that's called court-appointed attorney. So here in the United States, basically, if you are facing criminal charges, you are entitled to an attorney even if you can't afford one. So the court will afford one for you, put one for you. So I started doing that to help people out, and I did it for about a year or so. And then from that, I transitioned to working with or volunteering with legal services also to help people in other areas of the law, the employment and things like that. So I've taken a liking to employment law, and that's when I decided to veer into employment. حماية العمال والقيادي. That also ties back to my experience at McDonald's, what I experienced, and also just seeing generally friends around who worked at these, jobs and how they were treated. That made me take interest into employment law, which is really big here in the States. So I did that, and that's kind of how my journey into law began.
وبعدها حصل التحول وانت نزلت للانتخابات as a city councillor في الاكسندريه, correct? And you won. And you won, and كنت أول عربي Muslim in this position. Historically, George Washington served in this position. حاجة تدعو للفخر وتخلي everyone is proud about it. بس الأهم من كده إنه why did you decide إنك تطلع من to work as attorney وإنك لا عايز to serve in a position to help the people يعني.
Yeah, well, great point. So I never stopped working as an attorney even when I was running for city council. So I was doing both, and we'll get into that in a second. But also, coming to my home where I live right now, the city of Alexandria, and coming back to it and looking at our representative. So geographically, the west area of Alexandria was not represented in council. And then there was also no representation that looked like me or like my community or fought for my communities. So a combination of those things. And then also I was volunteering with the local Democratic Party, to help out, and always had interest in politics. So I was volunteering in that sense. And after talking to some, friends and community members, we thought, why not one of us try to run to make a difference, right? And fight for our community and just Alexandria in general. So decided to throw my hat in the ring, and that was kind of, the political journey started from there. And it was quite a challenge, right? And although some people knew me from my time, volunteering with the local Democratic Party, it was like, well, it's not your time. You're not ready. You got to wait your turn. I'm not even sure what that means. This is a democracy. But it just goes to show you that politics is politics, right? So there were some people that were just very discouraging and not very helpful. But we stuck to our plan, and we had, mashallah, a Sudanese team of volunteers, right? No one was paid. All volunteers, and shout out to Mayed Baba, who was my campaign manager and my go-to guy, that just kind of jumped in. We thought we knew politics. We didn't know politics until we jumped in. As you know, in politics, even at these local levels, you need to raise money to win. It's really important. And I didn't. I only raised $10,000. That's not a lot. Over a year in a race, some people raise 100,000. That's giving you like the disparity. So no one gave us a chance. So what I decided to do is like, okay, maybe people are going to raise more money than us, but no one is going to outwork us. So what I was doing, and this is really important in politics, is you go knock on doors and you talk to people about why you're running and whether they will support you. Okay? I was doing that in the morning, الصباح. ساعة بمشي الشغل بطلع 5 بمشي
تيجي
أعمل
تعمل
ساعتين
ساعات.
after work. And I was so upset that I wasn't raising money, and I was doing it 7 days at some point, even for Ramadan. Most people do it on the weekend or maybe 1, 2, 3 days. So when I had volunteers on weekend, which is very helpful, but weekdays I just knew that I gotta touch as many doors as I can because there's gonna be no regrets. I'm leaving it all on the table. And that's what I did 7 days for several months. And no one, even though people had like hire people to knock on doors, knock more doors than me personally.
Allahu
And
Akbar.
that helped propel us to win. It was a historic win just in the way that we did it, not just because I was the first Sudanese or first Muslim or first immigrant. It's the money just didn't make sense for me to win. And we ended up winning. So that was really encouraging
Oh,
to do. And
yes.
yeah, it was
Yes.
really it was an interesting journey. It was a very rich journey as well.
والله محمد كده يعني this is very important by the way. The way you are explaining how you went by knocking doors now as a simple guy, and there is a lot of people that are listening now, they will just be wondering how you get the gut to do it. Knocking doors، في ناس هيردوا، في ناس هيفتحوا يشاكلوك، في ناس هيطردوك.
Yeah. Yeah. Clap.
How you keep doing it؟ انت كيف قدرت تعمل الموضوع ده؟
As I say here in America, necessity is the mother of all inventions, right? I am, and I'll tell you this, I'm an introvert. I'm not an extrovert. محامي سياسي, I'm an introvert. You see all these obstacles, and yes, you're a human. You feel them. There's moments of doubt. There's moments of like, I don't want to do this. I want to give up. Why did I get into this? And that's normal to feel. But I saw the people who were volunteering with me that gave up their time, right? They were showing up for me. They were not being paid. They didn't know really how to do this, but they were going, learning, researching. They would come sit down in meetings with me for hours and strategize, right? I also looked at our community needs someone, right? The city needs someone also to kind of go beyond the special interests and serve the people. So that was the goal. Keep your eye on the goal. And I was basically talking to myself, like I talked to myself. When doubt crept in, as long as I did my all and I left nothing out there, I can live with the results. And that's how I kept going through all these rejections of people saying no, not interested, or just not even talk to you. But at the same time, the city that we live in, alhamdulillah, it's mostly progressive. So there were more people welcoming than there were rejections. But even the people that like said, I'm not going to vote for you or I disagree with you, they did it in a nice way. Some people were like, come in, please. نديك موية تشرب, اديك عصير. And some people would insist, they used to, would like, يحلفوا لكم على كده. But moments like that, if you had 10 rejection and you get to one person like that, it gives you more momentum to keep going. But I tried to see the positive in that. And that's basically what kept me going most of the time.
Wonderful. محمد، خلينا طيب انت you serve in this position like for 3 years صح؟ ولا 2
That's
years؟
correct. Yeah.
3 years. Okay,
Yeah.
so كده أخذنا لإنسان عادي بيتابعك هسه أو بيسمع فيك إنه البوزيشن ده هو شنو أصلا، وإنت عملت شنو خلال ال 3 years دي، وبعدها نقوم نخش على الجيرني الحالية.
Yeah. So 3 years, and this is also kind of, we get into a bit of the politics of the U.S. and how it works and how sometimes it's set up to serve the wealthy. So the city council, you are being paid as a part-time person or as a part-time job, but it is a full-time job, maybe even overtime, right? So most people who want to do this who are not wealthy, they have to hold a full-time job. So I was still working as an attorney and also as a councilman. So Yeah, I was basically almost working 16 hours a day. And the council meets, they have one meeting on weekends, which is a Saturday that basically goes sometimes from morning all the way to whenever the business finishes. And then they met on Tuesdays. And those meetings start usually after work, 6 or 7, and they go sometimes to midnight, sometimes to 2 a.m., sometimes to 10. It just depends on the order of business. But in addition to that, you get to serve on boards and commissions that are part of the job. And those boards and commissions are also meeting in the evening when you don't have a council meeting. So you have to attend those. At the same time, you have to make sure that you're fully aware of what's going on in the city, all of the issues. You're also responding to constituents reach out with local politicians. You're more easily connected to your community and its immediate impact. So you're actually talking to voters and constituents every day to make sure their needs are met. Additionally, you're also meeting with staff, the departments, whether it be planning and zoning or something else, city attorney or whomever, to give you a background of some of the issues that are coming to you. And then they give you like these detailed reports that you read so you're fully informed when you're making decisions. Because I was an attorney, I mean, I read them. I spent the time to read them. Not everyone necessarily did that, but I think it made me more prepared for the meetings. So that's kind of how your day and week went, right? So what I ended up doing on council, and I say this in all humility, I passed the most transformative legislation in this council, or very historic ones, in 3 years. And what I've done in 3 years, some people have not done in like 10 years.
يا سلام عليك.
It's just because how impactful you want to be and how much you want to spend. So I'll give you a few things that I worked on. Police reform was really big here, especially during the murder of George Floyd. So what I ended up doing is passing this legislation that would have basically a police review board. That is a citizens from the community would form a board, and they would have an expert with them who would conduct investigations in the event of police misconduct. That came about because of that murder and because sometimes, not always, police swept things under the rug and protected their own. So we wanted to give the power to the people. That was the first of its kind in the whole state that we did in Alexandria. And I
Wonderful.
pushed that.
Wonderful.
But I also don't stop there because I know like one program itself is not going to resolve the whole issue. فاهم كيف؟ فبدأت another program that we call A Corp, which also legislation. And what this basically does, you've probably seen a lot of videos هنا في أمريكا يعني البوليس يجي بيت زول يحاولوا يساعدوه ولا زول يضرب they ended up shooting them. والله مرات النقاش ساكت just escalates شكل وضرب وبعد ذاك arrest وكذا. فقلنا we have to stop this. So this A Corp program, basically what it ended up doing is it hired, and this is also going back to my psychology days, hiring a professional mental health counselor, psychiatrist at times, to actually accompany police, يمشي مع البوليس on certain calls, so they can de-escalate وما يكون في مشاكل وما في shootings وحاجات زي دي, to actually help الناس الدارين مساعدة.
It's a great
The
idea.
program was so successful. Police opposed me on the first one, the police review board. ما مشكلة. Yeah, the second one, they welcomed it, and it was so successful that they actually came and said, we want to expand this program. So once I left the council, we actually expanded, and it's a very successful program to this day. So these were very transformative legislations. I also amended the Human Rights Code to make sure that everyone's protected. Legislation there as well. I worked on affordable housing to make sure that there's affordable housing and protected homes. When developers were coming, I always asked for more affordable housing. Affordable housing basically means that units that people with certain income can afford, which is different than public housing. Yeah. Also, I did about almost $1 million to make sure that their mental health counselors, the المدارس, to help students out. Also goes back to sort of my days in school and the help that I needed or other people needed. We also passed the first collective bargaining agreement. Basically, the umma can bargain with the city for their, wages, protections, days off, وحاجات دي. Also, it was the first of its kind that we did it. برضو عملنا حاليا, I don't know if you've probably heard of Zahram Mamdani in New York. So one of his initiatives is that he's running to make the buses free.
You're right. Yeah, I hear
مجاني.
about.
Yeah. So نحن عملناه كان في I think 2020 هنا في الكسندريه. حاليا الباصات بتاعتنا مجاني. Anywhere في الكسندريه تركب الباص مجاني ما بقروش. ومن عملناها الرايدرشيب went up. ساعدت ناس كتار طبعا اللي ما عندهم قروش. الناس اللي بيسوقوا, it helped the environment. يعني there are a lot of benefits to it. This is one of the things that I actually ended up supporting. One of the other colleagues actually was leading it, but I ended up voting for it. These were some of the things. There was also the bus drivers themselves. They were trying to form a union, and the city had hired a union bus driver. This is basically someone that comes in بيعمل مشاكل عشان الناس ما تعمل union. So I got my colleagues and said, nah, we're not going to have that. We stopped it, and they were able to unionize. It was profoundly because they were trying to unionize since 1980 something. Every time they tried, they failed. So basically what happens at that time when I was elected with some of my other progressive colleagues, we just saw it as a human right. And then that's what we ended up doing. So when you elect the right people, right things will happen for everyone. So that's what I, kind of did. Some of the highlights that I've done, and it was very transformative, and it wasn't always welcoming. The last thing that I did, this was more symbolic. Of course, we did some resolutions for Ramadan or Eid al-Hayat. The city is very welcoming with that. But actually, this coming Monday is what would have been called Columbus Day. I changed that, my legislation and proposal, changed that from Columbus Day to Indigenous People Day. Original people that were here. I ended up connecting with some of our Native American community members here in DC and even in Arizona. And we worked on it. We saw the indigenous nations that were here first. We drafted a resolution, we made it, and it's a holiday now in the city, and it's called Indigenous People Day, not Columbus Day, which was not easy because there were some folks who wanted to keep it as Columbus Day. So I did that, and of course we worked on some protection for some of the housing units that were issued, especially in the West End, where a lot of our community members were. And of course, I also, used, I guess, my access to advocate for Sudan, as you saw, and I think that's the first time you started seeing me. It was also, we were so close to DC, we can just literally drive there. But those are some of the things that I did was I was on council. And let me just stop here and emphasize, because also I said, I'm going to pause for you.
No, you're not. And I'm enjoying it.
This is an introvert, huh? Well, something new.
Keep going, yeah. Keep going.
You got me started. So sometimes you can see, some people have passion once they start talking about a subject. You can feel it. Yes, and yeah. Looking back at it now, I look at it proudly. It's very transformative, right? And they were very historic, at least for the city and the state in certain occasions. But it was not easy. Nothing is easy even when you make it there, because you still have other 6 people you have to convince, right? That are sitting with you to vote on the things you want them to vote on. But they're also responding to very organized people, associations, and they're hearing from a lot of people. So how do you actually find a way to bring people together without alienating them and getting this legislation passed? So that was also kind of highlights like what you need to do and how good you need to be as far as researching, convincing people, and bringing people on board who are like hesitant. Right? That's step one. The second part is, of course, when you do things like that, you're going to hear from people, and you're not going to hear nice things all the time. Like I receive some random letters from people in Texas sometimes, like with threats. That even the police that didn't necessarily like me, like came to me and said, hey, we got you. Let us know like what you need and anything happens here. So these things happen. When they happen to you, that can get to you, right? Like what's going to happen to me? Anything could happen. Did anything happen to my family? Right? So you begin to think. And when you're in the middle of it and you're on your own, in the sense politically, you feel lonely. You feel unsupported. So when things like that are being pushed, you're supposed to count on the communities and the people that you're fighting for to show up and fight with you, because they can also convince your colleagues and also convince people who are watching this person is supported. But unfortunately, oftentimes I didn't feel like I had that present with me. That is not to say that these people said, hey, we've elected you, khalas, you go take on the fight your own, kind of like what these people told Moses. But it was more like, hey, you understand our communities. We're trying to make ends meet the same way that you were trying to do it when you came here. So if, we are working 2 jobs to help our youngins to have food on the table and pay the bills, sorry, we can't be there with you. So I understood that, but it can also like wear down on you as a person who's fighting multiple fights, and you still also have to work and make a living. So that's why it's really important for people, especially, people, communities of colors, when they have someone who's elected to stand behind them. Because I've seen the alternative. The alternative is for them to sell out. And I've seen that too often, too many times, of people that I know that ran on the right things. But when it came down to it, when they felt whatever they felt, they ended up going with the establishment, with what's convenient, and slowly walk in progress, which is something that I had refused to do. So that's why anyone who's listening really needs to understand how democracy works, what's behind it, what these people are feeling, and why sometimes they make decisions that they themselves, don't necessarily 100% believe in, but they need the backing. And I'm not defending those people. I'm just saying I'm not going to become one of those people. So it wore me out a little bit. It can be. I mean, politics is not glory, but it's a passion, and it's a passion that I have, which I
والله
take to the law as well.
انت عارف يا محمد يعني I'm glad انك في النهاية you said that انه it's not that easy، لانه انت حاسس قاعد تتكلم انا I can imagine how لو عاينا لها بنظرة انسان بسيط just watching that بيقعد يعاين انه انت you need to work like to keep your full job there as an attorney، بالإضافة لأنك تعمل الكلام ده كله، تكون connected مع all the people and to be aware of everything going around you and just think about how to fix everything, like, or at least I mean not everything, I mean like the things that it's fall under your, the scope of your interest, that the things that you feel this is right and this is wrong. And والله أنا admire you for the productivity. يعني أنت you did great things يعني في فترة وجيزة and it's all transformational for the people يعني. فأنا admire you والله for that. الحس عايز أقول لك محمد، جاني تساؤل حسي إن إحنا دايرين نتكلم حسي عن حسي خطتك الحالية for running for Congress، لكن جاني تساؤل وأنا قاعد أجهز في الحلقة إنه why أنت ما فكرت تبقى مير؟ ليه ما فكرت تتوجه في الاتجاه ذاك انك تكون مير؟ وانا I think it's gonna be، انا ما عارف، انا ما سياسي لكن it's gonna be more easier way for you. يعني انت already ناس بقى عارفاك يعني انت بسهولة ممكن تكون مير في المنطقة بتاعتك، لكن why you decided to go in this way انك عايز تكون في الكونغرس؟
Yeah, well, I thought about becoming a mayor, and I almost went that route. But I guess what I should have explained to you, in U.S. policy, there are mayors with executive power, and then there are mayors with what you call it. There's like executive power, and then there's just more like a head figure, right? So yeah, when I was on council member, right, there were total 7 of us with the mayor, and each person gets 1 vote. So the mayor did not have the authority to veto anything, did not have the authority do anything that I couldn't do other than just say, okay, we're calling item 1, calling item 2, and set the agenda. Or call the agenda, actually. The city manager would be the person doing that. So you think of it as زي الشركة وفيها CEO وبعد ذاك في البورد. Right? So that's basically what the council serves as. And they give directions to the city manager and they make the laws and the city manager executes it. So that's why the mayor, as good as it sounds, and I know it would have been a great one, you have the same power as a council member. So at the same time, I was also working at the U.S. Department of Labor. I had transitioned from being in private practice to working at the U.S. Department of Labor, which is a little bit more intensive. So it was kind of challenge. It would have been super challenging to do both at the same time at the time, because I'm just not any attorney. I'm a trial attorney, which also requires a lot of time and prep when you're dealing. So I was protecting workers, and the U.S. Department of Labor mission is to protect all American workers. And that includes everything from your airports, your hospitals, to your restaurants, to how much you get paid, whether you're discriminated against. Basically, anything that deals with employment, you can think of it, that's what we did and protect American workers. That was also rewarding and time consuming. So I did that. The other part of the answer to your question, I love serving locally. As I've said, I've done a lot, and I love giving back to the community. And I wouldn't mind, doing it again. But as I said in the beginning, where I came from, you don't really get to impact international or foreign affairs when you're at the local level. So with everything that's happening in Sudan, in Palestine, Gaza, I also needed to make a difference and go back to my roots of why I went to the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. So being in Congress, that's the only place in politics that you can have direct influence in what happens internationally. This is the heart of where things happen. That's another reason why running for Congress made sense right now.
تخيلوا معي 95% من اللي بيشاهدوا البودكاست إلى الآن ما اشتركوا في القناة. والمعلومة البسيطة إنه عدد المشتركين في القناة من أهم الأسباب اللي بتساعدنا على الاستمرارية بإنه نحن ننمو بالبرنامج ونستضيف ضيوف أكثر. عشان كده طلب بسيط، اشترك في القناة لأن اشتراكك في القناة يعتبر داعم أساسي لاستمراريتنا في البودكاست. شكرا جزيلا، ويلا نرجع للحلقة. نحن I think it's everywhere في كل الكوميونيتيز مو سيف الدين for Congress، لكن الناس ما فاهمة تفاصيل الحاصل شنو. انت وين هسه؟ المرحلة وين؟ هل we start to vote right now ولا لسه بدري ولا في كل الموضوع ده؟ فأخذنا واحدة واحدة كده يا محمد لو سمحت.
Okay, so first نبدأ لك the decision to actually run for Congress. And بدينا احنا talking about making hard decisions. So كنت شغال في the U.S. Department of Labor as an attorney. My title was a senior trial attorney. Basically means I'm senior في the department. And we basically covered 6 ولايات in Washington, D.C. So it's a big region. We were in charge of it. But then Trump was elected, and he started firing federal workers, attacking federal workers, attacking immigrants, and attacking basically the democratic institutions.
Yes.
And that triggered a flashback of how dictators work. And we've seen this in Sudan and many other places, even in Europe, of how dictators come, weaken the institutions, attack the education system, including higher education, silence opposition, silence freedom of speech, and then, use basically the military as your own personal police. Figuring, right? One of the reasons I went to law school and wanted to stop injustice. So, and seeing what's happening in Sudan and Palestine, my conscience will literally not allow me to kind of just continue to work and live my life, and all these things happening around me. So I know I needed to do something the same way I felt the first time when I ran for council. I needed to do something. And I knew this would be a challenge because I would have to leave my job, right? which I ended up doing. And of course, I did that, and which was not an easy decision for me and for my family, because I have to basically be a full-time candidate to make sure that I even have a chance of winning. So it's a big risk that I've taken on behalf of my community and the issues that are going on around the world. So that's kind of how we got there and why I decided to leave and run for Congress. Okay. Now that I'm running for Congress, I have, alhamdulillah, the education, I have the political experience and the actual achievements to list that I was able to do. So I decided to run on a campaign of affordability. When Trump came, tariffs went up, people can't afford much. So I think, this is what I truly believe, everyone should have the ability to afford a doctor, a home, and groceries. Because growing up, I felt what it's like to not have insurance or be underinsured. And people should not have to basically file for bankruptcy just to see a doctor or after seeing a doctor. It's not fair. As I said, when I was on council, I fought for affordable housing. The area that I'm living, there's a shortage of housing, and then housing is not affordable, right? So just to give you an example, especially for those who are trying to start families, it used to be the age that a person in the United States would buy a home would be in the mid to late 20s. Now, there are two stats that I'm going to give you. The average age of a home buyer right now is 56, right? The median age for first-time home buyer, is 38. So that's increased. So I'm talking about people everyone, regardless of what sort of job you're doing, whether you went to college, whether you're a business person, entrepreneur, or any other job, it's just harder for you to buy a home in this area. And it's harder, therefore, for you to start a family. It's harder for you to have kids. It's harder for you to get married. So these are things that are being taken away from a lot of young people and even older folks, right? People are growing older, not being able to afford a home. Why? Because there is special interest, there's corporate greed, there's venture capitalists who are buying homes, fixing prices and making it harder for everyone to buy homes or even rent. So I want to fight against that, and I've shown that I can do it in city council, and I've done it, and I will do it in Congress. And I don't take money from corporate PACs or from anyone because, again, I'm all for the people. The same thing, I have issues with the food that we eat here. People around the world may not have access to food. Here, we have access to food. It's expensive, but even when you buy it, it shouldn't make you sick. So I want to take on the system that put out these bad foods and make sure that we're changing that and taking on the corporations who are taking advantage of that. Of course, I also want to ban Congress members from trading stocks. And you might not think that's a good issue or issue that you may not care about personally, right? But they are these members who are making millions and millions of dollars, whether through conflict of interest or even the appearance of interest. And I don't think they should be doing that because that just creates an unfairness to the people. And it could also lead to issues not being worked out because of the correlation of the interest. So I'm taking on that as well. I think also another thing that's really important, if you overcome all these issues, right, and you do get a home or you have a family, you have to work now, right, to pay for the home.
Exactly.
But if you have kids, right, you know how much it costs for childcare here in our area, here in Washington, D.C. area?
How much?
It's the price of a college degree. It's about $147,000 for 5 years. A college degree without boarding is about 50 to 60 in state. If you include boarding, dorms and things like that, it comes to 126, maybe 150. So then you have to pay the first 5 years for a college degree, and then after a few more years as a parent, you have to think about paying for a college degree. It's just not doable for most people. The wages aren't going high, jobs aren't available. So something is inherently wrong while the 1% keep getting richer. And the 99% who are working 2, 3 jobs can't afford the basics. So that's an issue that I have. These are issues that most people are facing. It's an affordability issue. It's an affordability crisis that we have to tackle. And that's why it's at the forefront of my platform. And these are the things that I'm fighting on because I know what it's like to be in those positions. I face those struggles. And that's why we need leaders who understand the struggles that everyday people are going through and people who are willing to stand up for them. And that's what I will do. I can't say for my opponent will do the same thing. So that's why that's why I'm stepping up to take on that. We need the next generation of leaders to run for Congress and turn the tide because we also lost the election to Trump, right?
Yeah.
And it got us into all this mess. And we also lost the popular, and this is those folks who don't follow politics. We Democrats usually don't use the popular vote. We've lost it. Why is that? Right? Democratic Party is big, a lot of minorities and other folks on it. We lost some of those folks. They either stayed home or didn't show up, and because they've heard a lot of lip service without actually things getting done, and they see
True.
the gap in wealth.
It's true. It's true. طيب طيب يا محمد، معلش أنا عايز أقاطعك هنا شوية عشان أنا عارفك ماشي وين، لكن كده خليني أوقفك هنا شوية. السح let's say for أي واحد هسه بيشاهد الحلقة دي إنه okay what you are saying is something great، بس الناس زي ما قلت لك أغلب الناس maybe they don't understand how السياسة أو the government working. So if let's say you win and you are now in the house, how you gonna work on this stuff. لأنه بالنسبة للزول العادي بيقعد يعني اوكي ما هذا دونالد ترامب he's making executive orders. يعني I feel يعني yesterday I feel like he's having more than 100. He's doing a lot. يعني انت كيف technically هتعمل الموضوع ده and how you gonna fight for the things that you believe in it.
Well, first we have to get there, and we can talk about how we need to get there as a community and as a candidate. Because I can have all these great ideas, but if I don't get there, we're going to have the status quo.
هسه الناس كلها زي ما قلت لك in all the communities okay more for Congress. عايزين نعرف انت وين your position right now and what exactly what do you need to get there and to win to be in house.
Okay. Just to answer your question directly, to get there, you need to raise money, funds, so you can reach all the voters. We're about 700 people who live in this district. And to reach them, we can't deploy the same strategy that we did for city council because it's just too wide of a gap. Typically, you need to raise at least $700,000 to $1 million to run a successful campaign. So you reach all the voters. And that really depends on how strong your community is and your donors are. So you can raise that money, and that money will be used basically to hire organizers, to do mailers, to reach out to folks, and basically it's advertisement, everything that you need to do as a candidate to make sure that everything that I talked about, the platform, people hear it and then they respond to it, because we know that the polls show that people are feeling these things. And these are the things that they're concerned about, and they actually want a fighter who has proven history. So without raising the appropriate funds, doesn't matter, sure, Muhammad is running, Muhammad left his job to run, Muhammad's done it before. Muhammad's not going to do it by his own. It takes a community, right? So if all the community comes together and we raise the money, then we have a fighting chance. Without it, it may just be, an attempt. And it's nothing wrong with attempting, but you still have to put your absolute best forward. So that's how we win. We raise funds, we organize, we turn out people, we register people, and then we win. And then we can also talk about the importance of registering people and people turning out in the primary. And I can explain to you why the primary is more important in our race than the general election.
اوكي سو اوكي طيب خلينا طيب هسه كده في الفند. So انت هسه where you at في البروسيس دي؟
Yeah, so we launched our campaign on August 15th or 13th. So it's roughly been a month. Next week, I think. Well, almost 2 months. And the election is in June of 2026. But you basically need a year leading up to it so you can build up the campaign, the people, and turn out everyone in advertising. So we're in the early stages, and we're not where we need to be fundraising wise. So in the month of October, right now we need to raise $150,000, right, to be on track to get to where we need to be by at least December. Our goal is to raise half of what we need by December, which is basically $500,000. And if we don't do that, then we really are going to be in a tough position. So that's why we really make sure that people need to come out and support us. But right now, we're well below where we need to be. So let me just give you a rough number. Today is what, the 8th of October? We should be we should be around 50,000 or so. We're not even 80% of that. So it really takes a village to do it. And it takes an effort and a concerted effort.
طيب يا محمد انت I have a question انا بيجي في بالي طوالي. طيب how the candidates they're raising money usually كيف انه في ناس كيف في candidates they can raise like million and billion of dollars, some of them, or some of the candidates like you are saying now انه بيكونوا لسه ماشيين بالراحة كده يعني. وبعدين خلينا نجي في انك what's your strategy in raising you know the fund and وكيف الناس ممكن تساعدك برضه.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So it goes back to really why people are frustrated with politicians at times. You know, I don't take money from corporations or corporate PACs. So some candidates will. For example, I believe in Medicare for all, but I do not take a dime from insurance companies. While some other folks will do that because I think there's just inherent conflict because insurance companies do not win Medicare for all, right? So some candidates will take money from those, so they will get money from there. Then they also candidates are connected to wealthy people who may have other special interests who will give the maximum amount of dollars, right? And then that way they're raising money. And sometimes they're just connected and raise money like that, or the community behind them is strong enough where they raise money. But most of the times it's coming from, you know, these special interests or high donors for certain folks. How most candidates raise money is 3 ways. There are fundraisers. So for example, you say, محمد, I'm going to hold a fundraiser, Muhammad. I'm going to call 10 of my friends who are doctors or 20 and say, hey, we're going to host Muhammad. He's going to come talk to us about his campaign. And we want to raise X amount of dollars. I want all of you to donate. That's a fundraiser. That's one. Basically a host fundraiser. The second one is something we call call time. And if you start listening to politicians, sometimes it'll mention call time is not their favorite time. That is basically where candidates will get on the phone every day for a minimum of 6 to 8 hours and just call random voters and donors and say, hey, I'm running for X and Y, and this is my issue. Could you donate to me? And then they say yes or no. And 100 of them will say no, and maybe 2 will say yes. So it's all about volume. So that's one way.
This is tough, man.
Yeah, it's not easy. عشان كده قلت لك هنا في أمريكا sometimes we go politics is a wealthy man's game, right? So the guy I'm running against, he's worth $100 million minimum. So he's a wealthy man. Good for him. No issue with him being wealthy. That's why it's really challenging to get on, and it's difficult. That's why a community needs to be behind you. You can't just be one person or idea. So you can do call time. So it's host fundraisers, call time, and the third one is what we call digital ways. Where basically you hire a digital firm, and then the digital firm will kind of talk to you and reach out to folks and ask them to donate to you digitally. It's less work for you, but you pay them as well. And that's the third way. So right now we're doing all 3. Our digital firm just started, and then I'm doing the calls, and I'm also, whenever people in the community want to host a fundraiser, we'll attend that as well. And that's usually where a lot of politicians get their money, from those 3, unless you're, of course, taking corporate PACs. And of course, I'm not taking.
انت ما يعني you are not taking any corporate fund because of the interest point. But if طيب خلينا كده أنا بحسب وقاعد أفكر إذا في corporate they are matching your interests and they are in you know in the way that what you are looking for. برضو أنت you are not accepting any corporate.
So I'll give you an example. Say you work for, let's just take an example. I mean, I'm just being hypothetical.
Yeah, sure.
Say you work for say you work for Amazon, right? I don't take money from Amazon. You work for Amazon and you may not like what Amazon is doing with their pricing, or putting some small owners out of business, right? But sure, you have to make a living. But you can donate to me, right? You as a person working for the company, because you don't necessarily represent the interests of the company. You're not the CEO, you're not that person. Yes. So that's why I say we rely on people who may work at some of these places but have an opposition to these corporations and what they do. But also corporations will probably tend to favor the person who aligns with them, and that's usually not me. But there are countless examples of people who have done this, right? So you got Mamdani right now, you've got AOC, you have Maxwell Frost, right? Summer Lee, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. I mean, they won without taking money from corporations and going up against people with wealth, right?
Wonderful.
I think AIPAC may have spent 20 or 10 million against Rashida Tlaib and she won. So having money doesn't mean it's everything, but having some money, I can get my message across and can still beat a person who's like very wealthy. And again, I wouldn't just run for Congress to run as an exercise, right? I've been in this business. I talk to people who are experienced and they ran the numbers, and I know the numbers, and I know we have a path to victory. But to get to that finish line, we need the support of our community, and the sooner the better. We cannot wait until the last minute. So basically it takes all of us.
تعرف يا محمد أكتر حاجة touch me هسي في كلامك ده إنه it's not about the money, it's about the message. It's all about إنك you want to just to put your message out. Well, money is just the tool to do that. وأنا طبعا برضو حتى لما كنت بتكلم معاك بالتليفون I felt the feeling that إنك أنت you believe in your chance in winning. يعني it's not about أنت ما داخل تجرب, you believe in that. طيب كده محمد قبل ما امشي للنقطة الحساسة دي, أنا عايزك كده تاخد الشخص العادي اللي ممكن يتابعك هسه. let's assume that خلاص everything is great, you win, you're in the house, احتفلنا, عملنا حفلة, انبسطنا. so how you gonna execute الأفكار اللي كانت عندك اللي قلتها هسه دي وانت في الهاوس؟ لأنه مثلا الشخص العادي بيقعد يقول لك طيب يا أخي ما هذا ترامب قاعد وكل يوم طالب اكزيكتيف اوردر, واخر مره طلع قال التيرينول ما ياخذوه وبيعمل بيعمل اوتيزم. سو يا فمو ايمج
Yeah, I mean, so that's a really good question and a valid question, right? But in the US, we have a system of checks and balances. There's no branch that's higher than the other. You have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch. So the legislative branch is supposed to be a check on the president. But right now, because they're in charge and the Republicans are in charge, there's no pushback. Also, that the Democrats often are complacent or complicit in what the Republicans do because there is a corporate or money interest in it. There's not from my point of view, a robust pushback on some of these things. And I'll give you an example, but we won't be able to take all of them for the interest of time. Medicare for All is very popular amongst Democrats and independents. And in 2000, I think 16 or 19, when Bernie was running, it was popular amongst all Americans, the majority of Americans.
Yes.
But it's not seriously being considered. There's not enough legislators behind it. And it was not a major issue by the Democrats during the 2024 presidential election. Why is that? There is a problem of willingness. So when you elect people like me who have a history of doing the right things, those legislations will get passed. So that's why across the country right now, if you follow politics closely, there is a big push from Democrats and progressive Democrats to oust those people who are just saying things and aren't doing them. So we have to give ourselves a chance. In doing so, then we'll be able to achieve it. And actually what will happen, we'll save $450 billion annually if we pass Medicare for all. Just think about that. If this is was like your budget at your home and you can pass it or do something that will save you money and still get you good results, why wouldn't you do it?
Exactly.
It's literally going against your own interest. Makes no sense. You have enough people, you'll get it done because the majority of the people support this. That's just democracy. But unfortunately, what we're seeing, studies show that when the corporate interest, right, tends to align more with the legislation that is passed than the public interest. So then now we have a problem with the system and how it operates. It's working for the wealthy. It's working for the 1%, not the 99%. So that's how I would go about doing it to make sure that, we have enough people on and then get it pushed. But if someone like me wins, it's going to be a shock to the system going against an incumbent who is very wealthy, that even if we don't get those things done, it'll push the needle so that we can get it done within a couple of years or so. So it all
Exactly.
makes sense. But I also want to reminisce that when you're not, you're out of sight, out of mind, the Sudanese issue is not being talked about enough in the halls of Congress. Yeah, I've been there, I advocate it, but having someone there will help push the agenda, right? To bring peace, stability to Sudan and stop the killing, and for Gaza as well. So that's why really electing people like me and so many of the other progressives around the country is important. And we need that new generation of leaders who are going to take on these issues seriously and not just talk about them. So that's how we win. But we have to organize, show up, and then vote.
محمد، كنت قبل شوية بتتكلم عن إنه why نحن، عايز أرجع بس للنقطة دي لأنه I think it's important why نحن important في primary election more than البعده. ليه الحاجة دي؟ لو ممكن تشرحها لنا.
سؤال وجيه ولا handsome question زي ما أقول. Okay. So معظم or the most of the congressional elections are done in the primary. Okay. نعرف البرايمري هي شنو؟ البرايمري is لما يكون في حزب وفيه يعني نفرين ولا 3 candidates في الحزب ذاتهم دايرين يمشوا للانتخابات الرئيسية. منافسة في الحزب. منافسة في الحزب هاي. فاللي بيفوز فيها بعد ذاك بيمشي الجنرال. عشان المنطقة اللي فيها نحن بيقول لها شنو ديمقراطية ولا blue, very safe. It's super safe, yeah. It's one of the most safest blue seats in the country. لما تفوز في البرايمري تحت الحزب خلاص you basically you really need to go out your way to lose the general election. المشكلة بتطلع when most people especially في مجتمعنا they don't turn out in the primary, they turn out in the general, and then we get upset because the person in the general we're voting for the Democrats but they're not doing what we want them to do.
ما زولنا إن إحنا عايزينه.
Right. Exactly. زولك ده اختاروا لك زول تاني. فعشان كده primary في منطقتنا احنا اهم حاجه. our point is to turn people out in the primary. عشان كده انا قلت لك احنا ما نزلنا انتخابات بس عشان ننزل انتخابات. واثقين في الارقام عشان عندنا demographics الناس و how many people. We know the numbers are there. We just need to turn them out. بنفوز. لكن if we don't turn them out, we're not going to. Just to give you a quick example. أنا when I ran for council, I had 34,000 votes. ده في city واحدة بس. Right? الزول ده لما فاز في البرايمري فاتت أظن جاب زي 54 46,000 votes, maybe 47. في المنطقة كلها فيها 700 نفر. So imagine يعني if I have the right tools and resources and I can turn out people
You will get it.
from
So easy.
والمكانات خارج السيتي فيها سودانيين أكثر من السيتي يعني. وبعد ذاك فيها المسلمين، فيها الأفارقة، فيها البروجريسيفز. يعني the numbers are there and we can win, but we need to turn out and reach our goal funding wise so we can reach them. Without it, it's going to be very challenging. So yeah.
محمد
So, yeah.
نحن معك. أنا I'm saying now نحن okay let's say إحنا كلنا مع بعض، حس الناس قاعدين they are pump up، عايزين يكونوا part of it، عايزين يكونوا part of this journey. What do you need right now من people around you, your people في المنطقة؟ أنت it's Virginia 8th district, correct? Yeah. So yeah. فأنت what do you need from the people around you؟ فخلينا كده ناخدها كده step by step.
Okay. First thing, we can send you the link. We need people to donate.
We'll
Second
put it
thing,
in the description. Yeah,
yep,
we'll put it down. Yeah.
Yep. Donate to our campaign. Send it to 10 people and ask them to donate if you're outside of the district. And then you can contact us. We need to make sure that you are registered. And then we'll also remind you when to vote. We can even come and take you to vote. If you're early voting, to voting on the day of. الحاجة الثانية. الحاجة الثالثة, we need support online as well to follow us on social media because that will also elevate our platform. But not only that, as we get moving with the race, these people are not just going to let me run a race. At some point, there are going to be attacks on me. It just happens in politics, right? On the city council, maybe it's small, you can withstand it. But at a large scale, you need the community behind you, as I said earlier. So when that happens, we need our community to be ready to push back against some of these things that, will happen in politics. And we need volunteers as well. Whether you're in the district or outside of the district, we need all sort of volunteers. You can make calls, you can write notes, you can help us with digital advertising, you can help us with social media. We need all of that, and we'll take people, whether it's remotely or in person. And that's how we win. We got to organize. Those are the 4 or 5 things that we need.
والله محمد يا أخي، أنا يعني بقول يمكن لأي شخص ممكن يكون بيشاهد الحلقة دي الآن إنه you are not just representing السودانيين بالمناسبة، you are representing a large بالمناسبة population. أنت representing العرب المسلمين السودانيين، people of colors. أنت فأنا بالنسبة لي بشعر إنه it's not just about إنك you win، بس يعني you are representing an idea, you are representing a possibility, you are representing for the people، لكل الأجيال الموجودة هسه حاليا. you are representing a possibility in the future للجنريشن الجاية. إنه there is a possibility أنت you can do it and you can reach. فأنا I'm so glad إنه صراحة I met you في الحلقة اللطيفة دي، وأنا I'm so glad of your vision and I'm happy that إنه أنا ممكن أكون part of it، وأنا قادر أشوف إنه هنحتفل بإذن الله نحن we're gonna celebrate together بإذن الله. So نحن في الوصف بتاع الحلقة we will put all the links to donate and your social media, and I'm encouraging everyone بيتابع الحلقة دي، ونحن will try our best to put الحلقة دي قدام أغلب الناس الموجودين في المنطقة حقت فيرجينيا. and I'm encouraging everyone في يشاهد الحلقة دي إنه just to do his best and her best and spread the word around، خلي الناس تعرف إنه Mo is going for Congress. and don't underestimate the $5 and $10. put something there وبإذن الله we're gonna reach. محمد, do you have anything to say in the end ولا خلاص أخليك تمشي؟
والله شكرا لك. Enjoyed the conversation. I wish you talked a little bit more. I ended up saying I had no intention, but it was a great conversation. I hope it was informative. I hope I conveyed, to people, the importance of turning out, the importance of voting, the importance of supporting our community, and what it could mean for our community. And as you said, not only do I represent the people you said, I'm representing 99% of Americans. We are up against the 1%. So I always want folks to go back that this is a fight about the 99% versus the 1%. And all of us are in the 99% and we need to come together, all of us. شكرا لك.
ديب كاست مع مهند.